Good evening. Welcome to the Wednesday, January 24th meeting of the Chapua Central School District Board of Education. The board has been in executive session since 5 o'clock, 5:30 this evening. Can I have a motion, please, to reopen the public meeting? Second. All in favor? Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance, flag. Okay, as we do when we have our students here with us, we are going to start by welcoming our Bell students and faculty and administration here this evening and start with their presentation so that they can all go home and go to bed.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having us. I wanted to start first by thanking everybody, thanking the board, thanking the admin team that's here, thanking all of you for coming, Ms. Peratino, our teachers that are here, and the Bulldogs that came with us. And I wanted to start with just a couple of funny things that they have already said tonight. First, Ms. Grasso, they saw your location up there and said, wow, Mr. Curtis, that gavel is scary. And then another one said, I know what BO stands for, Bulldogs of Education. So anyway, thank you for having us. Tonight, we wanted to talk a little bit about how we are lifting literacy in the 5th grade. And to do that, Ms. Peratino and I will go through a few slides. And then after a bit, we will all retire to the iLab and go through a couple of simulations. So thank you for having us. So next up, Ms. Peratino is going to take the second slide.
Okay, thank you for having us tonight. We're going to illustrate tonight how our focus of literacy is connected to directly to our strategic plan, specifically improving student sense of belonging, rethinking traditional curriculum, and the middle school experience. Our students are able to see and as they write and read intentionally chosen texts, that there are windows and mirrors to see their own identities and their classmates, again, working towards our sense of belonging. And this also takes place through book clubs, shared texts, where they make connections with their classmates, with their groups across the grade level and the school.
And so the ways that we do that, we've been looking at the strategic plan that the board set before us, a couple of different parts of that. The idea of the 5th grade program alignment we're working towards, also the increase in rigor of grades 5 through 7 as it relates to what we've shifted in 8th grade. We do this by collaborating across the districts. There's been multiple times where we're doing professional development where Bell teachers are over with 7 Bridges teachers in their building and vice versa over at Bell. We do shared department and grade level meetings so that everybody's ideas and collaboration can take place in those important meetings. Even recently, again, shared professional development is a really nice way for everybody to be in the same space so that as we try to work toward these strategic plans in year 1, it's an easier experience for everybody.
So we'll find the 5 components and pillars of literacy throughout the units of study in reading and writing, through the benchmark phonics and grammar program, grades 3 through 5, through the read alouds, the independent reading, the interactive writing that they do in and out of the classroom, and including small and, of course, whole group class discussions.
Some of these slides are things you might have seen in previous years as Dr. Pease or perhaps Alyssa Stover were going through some of them. What you see here is Scarborough's reading rope. And one of the things that I pointed out on the left side of the slide that you can see, there's a term that you might not be familiar with, the Bell 4 core, as we're talking about student belonging and how we approach each day and the different benchmarks that we want our students to be paying attention to just as they go through their day-to-day, whether it's in class, where there's the cafeteria, they're at their locker, whatever it is this idea of self-regulation. It's only one of the 4, but since it's in here, I thought I would highlight it. Now, the rope is a very solid metaphor. Those strands in the rope on the backside, on the left side, you see how they're not together. And for a young reader or a young writer, the idea of tightening those things up and moving towards that skilled reading and skilled writing. Those are parts of what we want to see tonight. So whether it's language comprehension or word recognition, the parts are all important as we move towards that skilled reading or writing. The strands weave together to create that tighter and stronger reader.
So why the benchmarks phonics program? Because it's explicit. It's a systemic word study and phonics instruction. There's authentic application to reading. There's word sorts, builds words autonomously, with automaticity, excuse me. Assessments, there's formative and summative, fluency work, and grammar and vocabulary instruction.
That's a tough one. Just worked out that I didn't have that slide. I appreciate that. So for tonight, again, as I was telling the students and their teachers, the Board of Ed doesn't really want to hear from me or Ms. Peratino, but we want to see them in action. So what we've got tonight is after we get some evening steps, walking up to the iLab, we've got a little structure set up where it's sort of an amphitheater style. We've got a horseshoe shaped around a simulated small group activity in the center. We'll have a projected image for the teachers to sort of do a hybrid experience with you. They will talk a little bit to you and mostly to their students, as if you are simply in the classroom watching an experience that the students might have recently completed or might soon complete. And it'll be a two-step process. First, we'll watch Ms. House and her students go through a lead-up activity, and then Ms. Soprano will take it from there with her students and extend that activity. So 2 15-minute sessions or so. We'd like to invite the Board of Ed and our administrative team to join us to participate in whatever ways strikes you as perhaps more mature readers and writers, but no doubt somebody who doing this probably excels in that idea of lifelong curiosity. So with that said, I think we are ready. Unless there's any questions before we go, we are ready to head up.
Yeah, what we'll do is that we'll head down, we'll invite our parents to go down there and we'll actually wrap up in the iLab. So anyone who'd like to go along with us, we invite you to do that. So thank you.
All right.
All right, we'll be back.
Thanks, everyone.
Classroom looks like on a daily basis. And today we're going to be talking about models, everything in the workshop, we're going to interactive read aloud in this unit, reading, and we're showing you parts of the writing process within the reading unit. So, okay, so just a little snippet. We're in a historical fiction reading unit right now. We're about halfway through, and just some things that we've done so far. We've already read our full pop novel. We finished it on Friday. We are going to be discussing it today. We're already moving into book club. I think we started them about 2 days ago. So we've been back to talk about our full pop novel. One of the lessons that we spent on something that I think is more difficult and brings the conversation more questions is talking about how we realize the therapy perspective shape that by parents. We've also done a more deep work in themes. We start themes at the beginning of the year, but again, this is a rubric that we're studying around. And also we spent a few days thinking about when is it worth stopping and jotting? When is it worth thinking about it, right? So maybe when symbolism, you might be hearing some tonight, thinking about you know, when a character does something that's really out of place. You know, that's sometimes a good place to stop and say, why is my character doing that? And that's a good place to jot, a good place to talk, and it takes some of that character. Maybe this is 2 or 3 days of what we've been doing in the last 2 weeks. So we're going to just pretend we're in the classroom. We're going to ignore everyone around us, right? 11. Okay. We're just on. And now, before we start our conversation, we're got to make sure that we have an idea that will spark our conversation, right? So that's what we're going to start right now. Okay, so good. Right now, you're thinking, what's an idea? Right? I'm going to bring that's going to spark the conversation. And do that for a minute or two. So, go ahead, the conversation.
I think butter pepperoni symbolizes hope and freedom for them. I think just because when Ada first got into like her new life at the new village Susan, and being used to ma'am. She was like, she could keep it down on herself. She thought, she was always gonna get, like, picked. She didn't, think she would ever find, like, freedom and stuff like that. But when she, like, found butter and started spending more time with butter, she realized that she could, have, like, she could create her own freedom and stop worrying about her own.
So I agree with that and how that throughout the book that in the beginning she was, stuck in a room where she couldn't get out. And then when she had fired the problem, she like sat down and she was able to get outside and explore what my parents were.
I feel like I agree with both. Because I feel like when Ada goes onto butter, she feels like an entirely different person.
Like they didn't have to close fire. Yeah. She's a northern, she's not normal. Yeah, what I said is how for Ada as a person, she can't walk and has a strong passion with butter because it represents like freedom and hope. Because at when she was with Ma'am, she was abused and thought she was a disappointment because she had a club foot, which is like a bad thing. And when she really found butter and didn't have to be abused anymore by Ma'am, she really found herself and her passion and really started to like butter. Yeah, something I wanted to add on to that was I thought that like butter didn't just symbolize like hope for Ada, but it also symbolized like a whole new lifestyle because Ada was used to living in the city. She wasn't used to like living out in the farmland, especially not living near like horses.
I agree with you. Because also, at first she didn't even want to stay with Mrs. Smith, but then she saw butter, and then she decided she wanted to stay. That's because of butter.
I agree to your idea, as in like when she was with Susan, she liked being there because she had different options. Well, Jamie, on the other hand, she hated being there because he had to go to school, and when he was with Leanne, that he didn't have any like the rules that were made. If you go outside, didn't have to go to school. Stuff like that.
I want to answer that. It's basically like Ada and Jamie's life. They basically just walked around. Ada she got freedom. She got to do a whole bunch of new things. Like she got crutches. She went to visit Fred every day. She even went to help the woman like the service operations. Whereas Jamie, he used to have all the freedom. He used to go out whenever he wanted, come back as late as he wanted. But now he has to bathe every day. He has to go to school, and he has to eat. He has to eat like his vegetables. He has to go to bed at appropriate. Like their lives, like Jamie's not. They're both not experienced in new things.
Yeah, something I wanted to like Jamie is like he's not feel like he's not that into that. So something I want to add on to what Knox was saying, like Ada got crutches. Like we kind of understood after Ada went back with Ma'am why Ma'am hated Ada so much. I think she more hated Ada than Jamie because of Ada's clubfoot, but if Ada didn't have her clubfoot, she would hate them both like the same maybe because she didn't really want kids. Yeah, so Ma'am she didn't have somebody to put her all her pressure on because she didn't want anything. She never wanted them, so she wanted a reason. Ada had a club foot, so she could abuse her and then put them up to mentally and I going back to the Jamie part. I think that Jamie and Ada have see it differently, as in what I am not so different. That they switched like when Jamie was with Ma'am, there's a nice hat and world, and then when Ada was with
But Jamie adapted to, the countryside after a while. He added a cat, Gabriel, and then started going to Mrs. Smith a lot when he was in trouble or was sad, instead of going to Ada.
This is a thing that I want to add to you from before is when you said how when Ada first saw Butter as like a way to like set free and run. I feel like that's true, but I feel like because I remember when Miss Smith would like try to like comfort her and stuff, and like Miss Smith would like try to like hug her or anything like that. Ada would like dodge out of the way because she was used to man hitting her. So I feel like it's also like it's a way for Ada to relax, and also she had food to eat and didn't have to go in the cabin where Nana used to. Like Ada, like whenever she was in like a tough situation, she would think of Butter. Also, I think that like Jamie, when Jamie like had like the marks on his arm because his teacher kept tying up his left arm to the chair because it was writing with your left arm is like the mark of a devil. I think that like Jamie wasn't really used to abuse because of something that was like affecting himself. So I think that like he wasn't really talking to Susan because he wasn't used to being abused like that. One last thing is that if I can notice that Ada and Jamie, they both had an animal to think of and like go into. Like when Ada was upset, like you said, she would think or someone else she would think of Butter and it would help her calm down. Like Jamie, he when he couldn't wet the bed without having Bovril. But when he found when he found Bovril and started like taking him into his life, Bovril like soothed him, like Butter soothed him.
Do you think this conversation has helped us get ready to write our docs?
Yeah.
All right, let's open up our digital notebooks. You have to put in a new slide.
Can I use next week?
Yeah, I know. You already wrote yours. So wait, so remember, we're going to try to not do the obvious, right? We're going to try to push ourselves to the end. And if we think of an obvious, we can say like why, right? Help you push yourself, and then think of the conversation that you just had. I think that some of these are some new ideas, right? And don't forget, you can use your models. As they're writing, I'm just going to kind of wrap up, and then if the board wants to kind of see what they're writing. But if you're thinking of the writing process, I know we're in reading workshop right now, but really what they're doing is they're, collecting ideas first on their own, writing their own spark idea, but then they're also collecting ideas through conversation, right? I mean, that's how we get to the best ideas. And now they've chosen an idea, right? And now they're kind of planning it out and they're writing. They're starting with an idea, and then they're going to have evidence for it. And then one thing, which I don't know if they're at yet, but we always elaborate from our initial idea to grow a bigger idea. Because the purpose of writing about reading isn't just to write down what we already know, it's to write down what we think, but then to say, what does that make me think? Like now after this, after like in the middle of my job, now what am I saying? And it's kind of like, I want them to have that aha moment of like, oh, now I have a different idea. And that's really the purpose of the writing about reading. And instead of just having kids go do it, we give them the opportunity to talk to each other, to come up with their initial idea. Now they're growing their idea, and then they'll really have a fourth idea by the end of this when they do their elaboration. Thank you. Thank you.
Right, we're going to swap. How you all can come join us over here on the top 50 chairs.
How's it going?
Group 2, Miss Soprano.
This is the screen-free version of our literacy block. While I get started, friends, could you live well, I get calling each other.
I liked how they were very communicative. They use communication with their thoughts, and they elaborated on each other's thoughts, and they each other's thoughts to create a more complex idea. Another thing that we noticed is that in their group conversation, everybody talked at least twice, and they kept the conversation flowing.
Say it again, nice and loud.
I like that.
What do you like specifically about what they were doing?
I like
Well, thank you for having our group as well. You guys did such a great job. Sorry to interrupt your writing. What we're going to talk about is minor.
Yep.
What we're going to show you this evening is another aspect of our literacy block. Great. We have such dynamic and rigorous and engaging curriculum over at Bell and at 7B. One small aspect of our literacy block that we've really been enjoying, if you can believe it, is the grammar workshop. And even though, and I say that because when, if you're older than Google, like me, you might be referencing a little more traditional rote memorization of grammar. But with what we are doing, are we having fun?
Yes.
Yeah. And what do we call it? What time is it?
It's grammar.
It's grammar time. And you are Marion, and who am I?
MC.
I'm MC. And we really do play with words, word play. Our students not only build with words, they also sort their sounds in our automaticity sorts, in phonics. As far as grammar goes, we are able to extend our writing by writing more complex sentences. So as you saw in Mrs. House's class, they were coming up, they were building on each other's ideas, and they were coming up and growing really powerful ideas. And what we noticed was we were sort of limited by the types of sentences that we were coming into middle school with. So we had to make a change. We had to learn more complex and compound sentences. And did we do it?
Yeah.
Do you want to sing about it, by the way? Do you mind if we sing about it? It helps you to sing about it.
singing in the hallway today. I recognized the tune.
That's the point. So we have been recently learning that there are 3 different types of sentences that 5th grade writers use when we're writing sophisticated ideas. The first type, some people think it might be short, but sometimes it's long. Do you remember what it is? Simple sentence. And then compound sentences, right? You want to sing a song? Yeah. You could do this, right? About coordinating conjunctions. Ready? Coordinating conjunctions, make compound sentences. Coordinating conjunctions, make compound sentences. And they are connections, they go between 2 sentences. We write a sentence from a fanboy, another sentence, and stop. So we write compound. Now for the Swifties, I'm so sorry, but we've sort of improved the anti-hero song so that we can remember how to use subordinating conjunctions to write complex sentences. Are you ready? You have to start higher. It's a big, she has a range that Taylor. So just some background knowledge. We don't have a nice acronym for the complex sentences like fanboys. We have WUBIS. So we had to be a little creative with the ways that we made that stick in our minds as writers when we were constructing our sentences. So are you ready? It's me. Hi. Stop. Say that we are having fun when we're learning grammar is an understatement. We're having such a good time and we want to share the good time with you. So what's going to happen is there are going to be 3 stations. This first one, we're going to have our word builders. So I've got really, really hard word cards. I'm sorry in advance. So, but you can do hard things. And what you're going to do is you'll make a simple sentence. Then you'll change it into a compound sentence. And then in your mind, you'll sing, or out loud, you can sing our Swiftie song to make it a complex sentence. So you have topics over here. So our word builders, can you start over here? Word builders. Okay. And again, please talk to them, ask them questions, play with them. It's fun. And then we have our sentence destroyers. Where are the sentence destroyers? We're going to have complex sentences, and we also have a special guest. We have Billy, our bulldog. Please ask questions. And then finally, we are going to extend and expand our thinking and grow our ideas by having a book club conversation. In the back, we're reading Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets through our at the end of our fantasy fiction genre study. And they've been so from the jots that Mrs. House's class created, what we did was we chose which ones were the most significant to us. And we decided to organize those in an essay. So we started with an intro paragraph, and then we moved into the body. So our writers, our 5th grade writers, are going to help each other to determine if they should sort of look at the structure and the syntax of their piece. So not necessarily expanding the content, which Mrs. House's class so wonderfully demonstrated, but we're going to look through the eyes of grammar, through the lens of grammar. So book club, where are you? You can head over and come gather, ask them questions. We'll do this for what, how many minutes? Go.
9 more.
9 more minutes? Awesome. All right, so okay. We're gonna start. One at a time. Really kind of never. You might be thinking. Don't go with So first we got to go one at a time. Talk through
But since we have this friend of mine was already although he has new friend in New Jersey. Spend time long until then.
Very good.
So
They all work.
although and you guys now that I'm looking at this although
So let's start with the simple sentence. And I know I see Webis over there, Tyler. Can you flip to this page on yours? Excellent. And you guys chose football fans, right? So with capital F.
so like what am I like I predicted before that one will everything and like my prediction was correct. But yeah, I also like one of my ideas while reading chapter sometimes you do have to allocate is a terrible it's really and I also predict that real happen somewhere because we kind of been on the target. Yeah, because he was keeping like he was keeping her, and everyone knows he's keeping giant creatures. Everyone knows what, so they couldn't. So it wouldn't. I agree with Sid. I thought that was concerning about what he's doing. And another significant element goes right is that very in mind the first time that feel that monsters have which is like how other people are getting petrified. They're seeing like, or that's then no one has that because no one looks at it.
You can read them 3 different ways.
You're ready for some home to the first grade biodiversity.
There you go.
We need 2024 version.
I was like, okay, for the last. Say that again. So we're all gonna do this. Okay, Pat, there you go. Smile. Go ahead.
Wow.
If not the sportiest person, actually. For this one, you have concept area. There are other topics over there. Well, we have advisory.
Since Hermione spent most of her time studying, she had
How do you like resolve this thing? I was gonna say, how about, can anyone use book one?
That's what I did. You can put the cards because
You know what I do? Although summer study, still ended up getting bad grades that pop up here. How that? He worked so hard over the summer.
So, I spent most of the summer.
What you could say from Molly spent most of the summer studying before he took a trip to Italy with her family. Like, it could go, it could, the second half.
I need that. Yeah. Barber. Evan's barbershop.
You should go to Mike.
Well, it's just like, who's the only one? They're out.
Especially for you.
Did you think?
Yeah.
See if you get one more in.
How's perfect? So the word while is a destroyer word. Yeah, certainly is a word. Well, it wipes out the method they were using in the prior one. And so they had to make adjustments to make it work.
It was in there before.
It just said draw. So we couldn't stand alone as a sentence.
It's a different one.
I think you did it, guys. Yeah, I do that sometimes. I got that. I think that's what the computer would warn me.
Oh, that now, you know?
Yeah.
I have to turn that off. It's like a GPS. I don't listen to it.
That's fun.
Good job, guys. Thank you.
Grammarian.
You can clarify. Yes.
Grammarian. Yeah.
Yes, MC Grammar.
Why don't you come and gather with your stuff? Clean up your stuff. Why don't you put your materials in your bin? And well, feel free to ask us some questions.
Not just yet. So what we're going to do as the grammarians part 2 are going to clean up. What we'd like to do is make one more invitation for board members and admin. The first group was feeling ever so slightly like they didn't get you to see their stuff. So we have a quick grammarian and writing buffet experience for you right over here. So we're just going to extend by about 3 minutes. They would love for you to see some of their work, and then we will reconvene.
Yes. We keep writing. So for this dot, I really explained how butter symbolizes a lot to Ada.
Butter's the force.
Yes, and also how symbolizes, what I really got with that. She thinks that she's not. I also when she wants to write.
writing less happy.
Almost her entire life. So you think that she's ugly, this book was ever so well. But like, so I really got like definitely got anything else. But
You were a better writer of this song.
baseball player.
I was a better baseball player.
It's just
So, okay.
it's basically
Sorry.
That's very exciting.
Another 30 seconds, please, riders. Another 30 seconds.
I know, I have seconds, but I feel like I'm. It's amazing. A lot of work. Thank you. No, thank you.
Well, making me want to read the book.
Yeah, that's always.
I think that like it's eating it differently now. Some of the stuff that you learned. All right.
Mrs. Exercise for lunch. No, you go get ready.
All right. Thank you. Take them all and bring them back.
Around the tables or in the comfy chairs that you finished with John. Turned them into quite a bit more than John. Here, have a seat, and the board's going to ask us any questions that we might be able to help inform them about.
That's the best part.
All right, so students, we have with us the Board of Ed as well as some administrators. And we thought we would open up and give them the opportunity to ask you any questions that they might have based on the experience that they just got to witness. First of all, Board of Ed, thank you for participating with us. They've been very excited. Yeah.
You guys, this is the most fun part of our job is getting to see what you guys are learning and see your excitement about it and get to learn from you. So thank you for coming. I know it's a late night. So one question I have is, as you're doing your reading and your writing, do you find that you're looking at, now that you're exploring your writing and becoming more adept writers, do you find that you're taking a more critical eye to what you're reading? Like as you're reading, do you look at the different books and say, oh, this writer uses more complex sentences, or this one really beef up their grammar? Matt?
So basically, for when I was reading stuff, I sort of like magic the character of other stories, not in like that way, but I feel like that there's like a lot of books about the specific thing. But this is not really about it. This is like a different book that I could see that I was reading I Survived book about the Holocaust.
I just finished that one.
Found how it's sort of a connection because like
Next level.
And stuff like that. And I feel like that they have connections and also that like it's hard to explain. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
I was curious about the way you were all talking to each other during the conversation. I would know your own work. I would love to have some of the adults I work with, like learn some of the prompts that you were using in the way that you were acknowledging each other's points and then adding on or building. How did you guys learn that part? Like, because we didn't get to hear about that.
You know that like while we were writing our first like docs,
Yeah.
we got prompt schemes and like models to help us like structure our docs. And I think that those models helped to structure our book club conversations.
Griffin, I think you maybe shouldn't answer too much because I think there's a consultant gig in this for coming first year. How it's working at the corporate level.
Yeah, I thought that I agree with what colleague said that your comments are really respectful of each other, and I love the Spark ideas. I think I'm going to incorporate that into my book club. That everyone has to come with a Spark prompt. I think will require that everyone actually reads the book. That's a good idea. And I just want to say that when I was a kid, grammar was not fun, like at all. And so to see you guys really enjoying grammar and the song, it was exciting because it really made me feel like that you would be more open to the content because there was so much fun to learn about. So when I was a kid, we had to diagram sentences, and it was just the death of fun. So I hope that you guys are appreciating how much more fun grammar seems to be. And are you guys really enjoying like conjunction, junction, what's my function?
Yeah, it's like there's like notice like some sentences you might put in a compound or couple sentences for different reasons, and it's like funner because like you like as you're saying like the songs like it's kind of like a fun way of like learning complex things. Yeah.
I feel like with the songs, they're kind of like more engaging more with learning instead of like six black songs. Even if it's so boring.
I think for sure, if it's more fun, you actually try to absorb the information rather than just being like, I don't want to do this. And I thought, she also got successfully sync the songs in our heads. So we're more humming it than having it in the minutes.
Okay, so I was so impressed. I'm trying to recall now. So one thing about when you guys were jotting and then you guys were talking about what your thoughts were, I really was impressed on how everybody waited until each person, finished speaking. But I'm sure there are lots of ideas going on in your head. So sometimes when I have ideas in my head, I'm just thinking about what I want to say and I'm not really actively listening. But I knew there was proof that you guys were listening and waiting for everyone to finish because you actually said back what everybody was saying and then say, well, I agree with that first part, but I want to say something else and I want to add on to this part. And that's actually a very hard thing to do. Even as an adult, I'm just, turning. I was very impressed about that. I know this wasn't like a book recommendation kind of a session, but when I was talking to Eleanor and I was reading her notes, even though I hadn't read the book, I sort of was able to visualize the characters in the book, in the story, and was able to understand the good and the bad about the relationship between some of the characters, and how sometimes characters change over time. And she gave examples on why the feelings have changed, and she listed those out, and so that was impressive too. So all of these very complex, not just sentences, but skills, it's just very impressive.
I actually don't have a question because I don't think you guys need to answer any of my questions. I want to tell you that I am like super impressed by all of you, and it sort of piggybacks off what all four of my colleagues have already said. First of all, your teachers are amazing, and I think you really need to recognize that. In a very traditional manner, and I don't know if you guys are aware, you're so lucky. Our teacher would stand up there and she would ask us very specific, inane questions about the book, and was native, horse, brown, yellow, like those are the questions. You guys are putting together critical thoughts and then engaging in discourse that, as Ryan said, adults are really not able to have for the most part. You guys are learning skills beyond just the reading. You're learning how to have dialogues respectfully, to listen, and to speak in public, which a lot of people are really fearful of. And I think your teachers are amazing, and you guys are so fortunate that you're learning in this way. And I'm usually blown away because I'm easily impressed, but you guys are really, really impressed. And I would wrap it up right now. I hope nobody has anything for public comment. I want to go home on a high note because you guys are amazing and this is great.
For the students and their parents for bringing them here tonight. You guys were amazing. I'm like so proud to be your superintendent. What a fantastic window into the work that you guys are doing every day. So thank you, everybody, and have a good evening.
Great. One more time to build up. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, so thank you. That was a lot of fun. It's always great for us to get to watch what our students are doing in the classrooms and to see them so engaged with their teachers and to see the incredible and creative work that our teachers are bringing to the classroom. I think we would have all enjoyed grammar a lot more with song than, our recollections. I remember literally sitting at the desk and copying pages out of Strunk and White, and there was no music. So that was really fun and always a great time to get to see our kids in action and our teachers in action. So thank you if you came with us, and if you didn't, hopefully you could see what we were up to in there. So I am going to be short and sweet this evening, or at least short. We had our winter administrative retreat this afternoon. We did some work around how to most effectively work as teams to make sure that we as an organization are working as efficiently and productively and really using the human capital that we have and the human resources we have as a team, as a board, as administration, as productively as possible. So that was great. I want to take a minute and commend the Horace Greeley Scholarship Fund on what I've heard was an amazing inaugural winter ball for our elementary school kids and their adults. Based on the clamor I saw online for tickets, you guys may need an actual ballroom next year, but it looked like a great success. And this weekend coming up is the Chappaqua Schools Foundation Harlem Wizards basketball game. A number of us up here have volunteered to represent the district. We'll see how that goes. I don't think I've played competitive basketball since the 8th grade. And given that I also don't think I've taken a full breath since early December, this may go very poorly. But come cheer us on and please laugh quietly to yourselves. We have started to get a lot of feedback around the budget. Please know that we are reading and taking note of everything coming in. We will not be addressing the budget or any of the concerns or suggestions for cuts or adds until March when we get back to the budget issues, but we are taking notes and we'll be addressing many of the concerns coming into us when we get to March, so stay tuned. The initial state aid runs were released and they were not good for our district. So Dr. Kohl-Block is jumping into action to try to work with our local officials to rectify this situation for us. We will keep the community posted, hopefully with good news on this front. And I think that is it for me tonight. I'm going to turn it over to Dr.
I have a few slides. You can see our agenda is pretty light. And so let me just wait for us to pull up the community update. And the first thing I'd like to talk about is a new policy that I have been sharing that would be under development. And now it actually is, and it's up on the agenda for first reading. And this policy outlines how parents can bring curriculum concerns to the administration and to the Board of Education around specific materials. Again, this is a first reading, so if people have feedback they want the policy committee to consider, they can email the full board, they can email Kaylee and Ryan and me, they can email me. I've also sent this out to the faculty for their feedback as well. And basically, this is an addition to policy 4005, which is currently in place, which addresses how elementary and secondary curriculum is developed. I've added, and the policy committee has approved the addition of an instructional materials section. And what this says, the first part of this is not on the policy. I just pulled out the procedural piece. But basically, parents can who have a child in a class where they have a concern with a material, they can, the first step in addressing those concerns are with the teacher. And then if it's not resolved there, the building principal. And if it's not resolved at the building level, then they can issue a complaint to my office in writing. And then I would appoint a committee, an instructional review committee of tenured staff and an administrator who will engage in a process of reviewing that complaint within 30 school days of when I receive it in writing. And what they would do would, they would review the challenged materials, consider the written objections to the materials voiced by the complainant, consider the educational intent of the materials as a whole, consider the information, any other information presented to the committee, when appropriate, maybe contact an outside educational agency to get their feedback on the complaint. And then they would write a report to me with a recommendation, and then I would review the report, make a decision, and notify the complainant, the instructional review committee, the appropriate building staff, teacher, the principal, and the Board of Education of what the decision would be. And then the parent would have the opportunity to appeal that decision under policy 3005 to the Board of Education. So this is this follows the same pattern of an appeal process under our current policy, but it adds like a committee review. So I wouldn't be making decisions in isolation, which I think is a smart way for us to consider moving forward. If a complaint is raised by a parent around an instructional material that their child is using in a specific classroom. So again, the full policy is online, and we take any kind of feedback, and the policy committee will review that. We'll probably do a second reading at the next meeting and not have this up for adoption, since there might be people that want to provide feedback through this process or through the focus group process that we have been outlining that we were going to conduct as well as a part of our work to address the concerns that have brought forward to the administration and the Board of Education since October 7th. So we did have our K through 8 parent forums and educational sessions last week, and now we're moving into our focus groups. And so this was sent out to our parents today, and we've had people already signing up where they can meet independent of the district with the American Jewish Committee, the division from Westchester, and share some feedback that they feel like we need to hear as we plan forward. So the AJC will be meeting with the Board of Education in the work session on February 28th to share that feedback. And we'll keep an eye on these meetings, and if we feel like we need to expand our sessions, we'll talk about doing that based on the number of parents who wish to participate, because we want to make sure everyone has the opportunity to be in these focus groups if they so choose. There won't, just like how we had done in the past with Insight, there won't be any representation from the district at these meetings. That's how they're designed that way intentionally. We're at the end of the second quarter, so I did want to provide an update on our hate speech, bias, and discrimination incidents for the second quarter. We don't tier out what these incidents are. I am taking under advisement that people would like us to do that moving forward, but that would be a decision that the Code of Conduct Committee would make over the summer as we prepare for next year. This is an overview of the incidents that need to be addressed by the administrative team in connection with the Code of Conduct over the course of the second quarter. And now I want to, at the last meeting, we talked about Adam providing a broad overview of our literacy progress as we work towards planning for next year. I do want to share that we have concluded our RFP process, and the board has potential applicants to engage in a review of our curriculum for their consideration. We will be reviewing those applications over the next week and then scheduling interviews in the near future. So I am going to ask Adam if he could provide a very brief presentation on the work that's been done to date so far this academic year in the school district. So.
Great, thank you. So as Dr. Ackerman mentioned, there's been quite a few moving parts here. SAND continues to shift with regard to literacy, so we wanted to provide that update for you. In terms of what we know at this point, as of today, we know that the New York State Education Department has published 7 science of reading briefs. In my opinion, they're actually pretty strong briefs, and they give us some good guidance with regard to how to interpret the science of reading research as a school district. State Ed has told us that they will not be creating a list of approved programs or recommended programs. Some states in the area have done that. New York State does not plan to do that. They will be publishing a program review tool, which has some implications for our RFP. So they didn't give us a date, but they did say this spring they're going to produce an instrument or a tool that districts will apply to their own reading programs and writing programs. And then the superintendent will have to verify or sign off in some way that the district's programs align to the body of research in the science of reading in those briefs. So I think that has some implications for our RFP process, because I think we depending on the timing, we could have a tool that outside agency could apply, which could be very helpful to us. So we'll talk more about that in just a minute. All right, so what we know continued, our second round of requests for proposals has completed, and we have, as Dr. Ackerman said, we have a binder of proposals that have come in for your review. I think you all have a copy of those at this point. We have implemented the new K2 units of study, so those are being implemented now, and we talked a little bit about the rationale for that in the fall with regard to if there is updates to that program that align it more closely with the science of reading, that we should purchase it, and we have, and we've been putting that in place. We've had positive experience with our new consultants. Prior to this, we were contracting directly with Teachers College, and then we shifted from that to these outside consultants, and so that has gone well. Those were both board approved in the summer and fall. Student growth and achievement continues to be very strong. We actually don't have all of our winter maps data yet. I was hoping to share it with the board about this time of year, but the MAPS window hasn't closed yet. We don't get all the district reports until that window is closed. So most of the students in grades 1 through 8 have taken the universal screener for both math and literacy in the winter, but all of them haven't yet. So the window is still open, but we'll be closing that soon. So I'll have some data to share with you once that does. And then the last thing is, I mentioned that the district's required to verify the literacy programs align with the science of reading. All right, so here's some things that we don't know just yet. We don't know when the revised units of study will be published for grades 3 through 5, especially with the reading units. The writing units have been published 3 through 5. We haven't purchased them yet. We haven't decided if and when we will purchase them. At this point, it's on hold. We're thinking that we'll wait for that RFP process and that review before we make any moves there. We don't obviously know who will conduct that independent review just yet. That'll depend on your review of those submissions. We don't know when that tool for review will be published, but State Ed has told us this spring. So we're hopeful that we'll see that sooner rather than later. And then obviously what adjustments will be made to our program and the cost and the timeline of these adjustments. I did try to work my budget, which I get to present to the board in about a month or so, to be able to have some flexibility with regard to recommendations from the RFP and be able to implement those things with the budget that we have developed. So I'm confident that we could do that. Yes, absolutely.
Quickly, because we want to be able to take the recommendations and prepare for them both in terms of a budget standpoint and a implementation standpoint to make sure that our literacy curriculum is where it needs to be, certainly by September. But are we setting ourselves up to be in a position where we pay an outside agency to do this audit and then find out that we have to do a completely different audit to satisfy New York State? Like, I don't want to pay for something that ultimately is obsolete within a month of doing it. On the other hand, I don't want to put off doing something that we believe strongly we need to do.
Yes. Yes and yes. So you've identified the kind of conundrum perfectly, right? It's we have the briefs from the state, which is great. I have to assume that their evaluation tool instrument is going to be closely aligned to that brief. So we could probably make some pretty good guesses as to what that instrument is going to include. But without seeing that instrument, it's hard to say go with the RFP. A big part of the RFP is for an outside organization to actually take this huge body of research that we call the science of reading and like really distill it down into what does it look like into a school district. The New York State is doing that for us. They just haven't produced it yet. So time is of the essence in terms of us having the time to do the budgeting, get the program in place, provide the professional development, all of those pieces, the sooner we know that, the better, because then we have a longer runway through the summer to be able to, do all those things. But on the other hand, if we're too soon and we jump the gun, we could have a review that doesn't necessarily touch on all the points that are in that document that ultimately Dr. Ackerman will have to sign off on and submit to the state. So yeah, that's like a discussion I think that the board's probably going to have in terms of timing. Okay, so I just wanted to share the Science of Reading briefs are available to the public. You can find them on New York State's website. I put a QR code there for you. I just listed the briefs. In my opinion, they're actually pretty strong. The primary author is a Harvard professor that wrote most of them, and they're very well aligned with what we have been describing as a science of reading. And you can kind of crosswalk them with many of our webinars that we've done, and parents have seen. In many cases, it's very similar images, definitions, things like that. But they are available for folks to review, and we've been going through them pretty closely ourselves. They confirm some things from our program and also, provide some areas of stretch for us. They confirm our shifts in K2 units of study, emphasis on phonics. Readers are the kind of a changeover in the material that students are reading, especially in K2. Library reorganization, so the elimination of like leveled libraries and reorganization around skills, things like that. Culturally responsive and sustaining is written through the briefs. SEL integration is written through the briefs. We do that pretty well. The big 6 skills and competencies are written through the briefs. The reading-writing connection, we actually just saw some of that. Students read while they write and write while they read. And so the marriage of those two, they can't be taught separate, or they shouldn't be taught as separately, but instead integrated. So we do pretty well with that. And then it's assessment systems. The briefs really double down on this idea that districts should have a universal screener, and also that the data should be used from that screener at the district level, building level, and classroom level. So I'll talk more about that in just a minute. Some areas of stretch for us. One of them, interestingly, is more emphasis on content-based writing instruction through the discipline. So like, what does your social studies program look like and your science program look like, and opportunities for students to read rigorous, challenging content text through those disciplines. An area that I think we need to do some thinking about is our science program at the upper elementary level, which is interesting that layers onto our literacy conversation, but we'll share a little more about that in a minute. Word study grades 3 through 8, 3 through 5, we've been using Benchmark as our word study program. You saw pieces of that in our last presentation. We don't have an explicit word study program in 6, 7, and 8 right now. So that's kind of a gap that we've identified already that we should be thinking about. Spelling practice and quizzes. I was actually surprised to see spelling quizzes appear in the briefs, but they did. So we'll have to do some thinking about like a spelling program. It's a little bit of a throwback. We've been talking about and sharing our experiences in literacy as students, but there is some kind of information in the briefs about that. Syntax, grammar, and morphology, that goes along kind of hand in glove with the word study component. And then the assessment instruction link, one of the brief very explicitly mentions that the district should have explicit flowcharts with regard to who's responsible for what when it comes to data, what's district data, what's building data, what's classroom data, and how is it used to drive an instructional process for students and a continuous improvement for the district. So I just wanted to share an update on our literacy task force. We do have a task force that's been working through the fall and will continue to work through the year. These are the members on the left side. You see all of our elementary members. We pretty much have at least one representative per school, per grade, and you can see many of them are doubled up. So elementary on the left side, and then actually it's not quite that simple. Mostly middle school on the right side, but I see there's a West Richard reading there too. But you get the idea. It's a pretty robust team. They meet regularly. These are their goals: review the latest research on the science of how children learn to read, explore evidence-based best practices, analyze our student data, evaluate additional potential programs, serve as a steering committee. So they've been doing that work through the year. These are some of the books that they are using as their anchor texts for their study. And then I did want to kind of shift over and share with you some data. I shared that I didn't have the MAPS winter data just yet, but I did get some aggregate state data that I think is important for you to see. I apologize that these numbers are as small as they are, but basically what you're looking at here is our grade levels on the bottom. This is the New York State ELA assessment from last spring. And you're seeing the grade levels on the bottom, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way up through 8. The last bar all the way, or the last 2 bars all the way to the right are the average of all of the others. And what you're seeing is the orange yellowish bar is our percentage of students who scored a 3 or a 4, which is considered proficient. So you're seeing proficiency percentage. You see, I don't know if you can read the numbers from where you are, but ELA in 3rd grade, 80%, ELA 4th grade, 86%. 77.9, it kind of moves through that way. So you're seeing that yellow bar is that percent proficient. Obviously, we would like that to be 100%, like all of our students in the grade be scoring a 3 or 4. But then that second bar is our New York State percentile rank. So based on that proficiency, where do we rank in the state with regard to, comparing us to other schools? And you can see that as you go across, the lowest of the ranking is a 96%. Most of them hover, 98 to 99% with an overall of a 98.6 percentile rank. So, we continue to get strong data that our literacy program is producing strong results is what this comes down to. And we'll continue to pour through this data and especially kind of slice it up in a way that making sure that we're meeting the needs of all kids. And, that idea of an 80% of meeting proficiency, we'd like that to be 100%. That's very good when it comes to where the state, the average state scores, but we continue to push to do that better. All right, so priorities moving forward. Obviously, the RFP process, Board of Education has that in your hands, and we've already, Hillary mentioned, to consider that timing with regard to, not too fast, not too slow. We're going to have to figure that out as we go. And then for the district, with regard to our current literacy program, consider phonemic awareness programs in K1. We are piloting Heggerty right now. You may hear more from us about that. We've had some strong results with the Heggerty program in K1 in addition to the programs we're using. Units of study grade 3 through 5, we're on hold right now. Consider science program shifts in grades 3 and 4. Right now we're using Science 21. We have a program called Smithsonian Science in grade 5, which is got a lot of literacy resources with it. We may consider pulling that down or at least doing an analysis of what that might look like, what other programs are available in grade 3 through 4. Literacy PD for middle school science and social studies teachers to meet some of the recommendations in those briefs. 3 through 5 word study is a priority. We are using benchmark. You saw it used by a couple of experts today, but we need to continue to support teachers' implementation of that benchmark teaching of word study. Review our 6 through 8 ELA curriculum as part of our strategic plan. And then our Science of Reading task force is kind of continuing to learn and ready to engage with that consultant once we have one from the RFP process.
Any questions for Adam?
I have one. Can we go back to that bar assessment graph first, just a second? For the ELA?
Sure.
So I noticed a dip in 5th and 7th. Do you have an idea as to what's happening there, or?
Yeah, so it's the first thing is this is kind of snapshot data, and we have to look, in my performance report, you can see over time that 5th grade dip is pretty consistent. In some cases, we haven't typically seen a 7th grade dip, and in some cases you see just a cohort dip. You can follow a cohort over time and see relative strength of a cohort that every 7th grade is not necessarily equal. So you're thinking about, is this a indication of cohort or is this indication of program? Because of that 5th grade dip has been pretty consistent for us, we're thinking about the transition in 5th grade. And the hope now is that with the new 5th grade kind of double period structure, 2 teachers, that we're going to have a better transition from 4th grade to 5th grade, which is middle school. We're being compared to most 5th grades in the state that are taught at the elementary level. And so they have the flexibility of having the full day with a teacher. In some cases they're departmentalized, but it's like a really different structure in most schools. So it's a little bit challenging for us to compare our students. And, we know that transition years are challenging for students in general. The hope is that with the changes in 5th grade, adding the benchmark, grammar, word study, that will help, also changing the structure of having the staffing done. So they've got a ELA and a social studies teacher and then 1 math science teacher, that we'll see some results from that. These numbers have actually they've gone up since we've made some of those shifts, and I anticipate that they'll continue to, but it continues to be a concern for us, for sure.
Thanks.
Thank you, Adam. And so I just want to mention that on Thursday night, there is a 9th grade parent orientation, and we received a few questions about science course offerings, and the high school is presenting at our next meeting, and they're going to address that. But this will be a nice opportunity for parents to hear from our teachers around what the 9th grade program is going to look like, and specifically that science program. So I encourage our parents to attend those meetings if they're able to do so, particularly if they have questions around the curriculum. And then, you know, as Hillary said, we have the Harlem Wizards this weekend, and Seven Bridges will be presenting Legally Blonde before our next meeting. We have our 10th grade parent meeting, so there's a lot of opportunities for people to come out and see our kids do great things. So we encourage people to do that, and of course our Board of Education and our teachers as they play against the Harlem Wizards. So, all right, thank you, and that ends the superintendent's report.
Thank you. So that brings us to committee reports. Does anybody have anything to share?
Policy committee met. I mean, we saw some of what came out of that. And another chance to read and for the community provide feedback about the club's policy as well is still there. So that's what we spent our time on at this point. And I think you should do comms because I had to miss it.
Yes, the communications committee met, and I don't want to get everybody too excited, but the new website that we're going to unveil at some point soon, not sure exactly when, looks awesome and is going to really be a much more user-friendly experience. It is going to be much easier to find the things you need to find on a regular basis to give your kid lunch or call them out sick or do all those things that we're all looking for on a regular basis. So we're excited to hopefully roll that out soon, but it looks amazing and we're really excited about it. Okay. That brings us to the public comment period. Oh, and I just want to say to the policy committee, you'll see in the rest of the agenda that there are more readings on tonight, but nothing's being adopted, just in case that wasn't clear. We're just reading and commenting, but nothing is being voted on tonight for adoption. We welcome public comments, and in respect for each other's time, we ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes. Board members may also be contacted via email or phone. After the public comment period has been completed, board members may have a discussion amongst themselves regarding comments presented, and please remember no personally identifiable information. So if you'd like to make a public comment, please come on down.
Hi there. My name is John Garfunkel. I'm dad of 2 girls in West Orchard and Seven Bridges. Appreciate the opportunity to come here. It's a very informative meeting so far. I was thinking as we looked at the budget, I know that's going to come up at future meetings. One thing that's been I've been thinking about since the spring, what have we been missing considering the strategic goals? We've been missing is trust. And had a lot of thoughts about what's been going on since spring and where that helps. I know back in the spring, we were talking about the teacher retention. We lost a lot of teachers last year. Happened for a number of years, we heard. And when we asked questions about the board, it was not something the board was really giving oversight in at the time. I heard from a board member that left, well, I don't know, maybe their spouses got jobs in other states. It wasn't like really focusing. And it, that was just in the back of my mind until what happened in August. We lost the middle school principal. Popular kids in the district. And, I know you can't comment on personal matters. I know this is several months ago, but I asked people who I thought would know. They had no idea. So it just, comes out to me like, if we had some more trust, we would understand these things. Part of the challenge with trust is things that come up in board meetings as a surprise. And you say, well, how is this a surprise? How are we knowing this important budget decision that came up? Why didn't we hear about that months ago to get more people? You want the community to be behind it. I'm skeptical from what I hear. Those conversations need to be happening early. I was very glad to see the literacy presentation today. Thank you, Dr. Hughes. I know this was follow-up on a presentation you did in September, and I sent you a question at the time. Well, what about that dip in 5th grade? And unfortunately, I didn't get an answer. Again, trust. I don't know why I couldn't get an answer then, but thank you, Alyssa, for simply asking my question from September. I know it's tricky. I know there's a lot of data, but this is what we want to see. We want to see that things improve over time. So I know the graphs you show are a point in time. So that's, again, part of this trust to be able to communicate that. We know we spent a lot of time this last few months discussing the Middle East curriculum. And it came to, oh, there's a part in the curriculum that seems unbalanced, seems like it's not complete. And I'm wondering, why did that take so long to get to that point? It took a war to figure that out. And one of the things that I think could help is we get a broader team looking at curriculum as we do at other districts. I saw what we saw tonight. There is part of it. Seems like the policy will be expanded to allow parents to question it. But I do think we need more to involve the community at a level that some other districts do. The community would not be overriding the district, but they would be involved in order to be in the loop, in order to help translate. There is so much confusion about the middle school science and math. Oh, one more minute.
Move to extend the speaker's time. Can I have a second? All in favor?
Thank you.
You have one more minute.
So again, that's an area where having a committee of involving the community doesn't lead to overriding, but it helps communicating, possibly helps get people more informed, more in the loop of what you're doing. I know you're looking at armed guards as part of the extended budget. I want to trust the data on that. Number of school shootings, 1 out of 100,000 schools. In the Northeast, it's 1 out of 200,000. It's 50 million kids in America. Sadly, 21 are the casualties of this, but 250 times that number are the casualties of suicide. 200 times that number go to the ER visits for self-harm. So we have to look at the harm. Ultimately, trust goes both ways too. To hear, as you said at a past meeting, that parents were writing you saying, threatening you, saying, how dare you put my kids in danger? That's infuriating to hear that parents are doing that. And I can't apologize for the parents, but I feel we as parents need to do a better job in trusting the board, and then the board could trust us. Thank you for your time. Look forward to working.
Hello, my name is Melissa Gomez, and I have an 8th grader at Seven Bridges. 2 weeks ago, when the course description was released for the 9th grade, I think I was the first one to open the link. I was so excited to see the course offerings, and I scrolled right to the science department. I was a little confused and surprised. I was a little disappointed just because I feel it's a lost opportunity, especially with the timing of living environment being moved to the 8th grade level. Living environment has been such a positive experience for my 8th grader. However, I do understand that it's not been a positive experience for all students. It would be great to have the science department have tracks like our current math model to accommodate students of all abilities. My daughter was really looking forward to taking chemistry. There are students that are ready. We have a rigorous STEM program, and not to mention a successful Science Olympiad program, which is growing in numbers. We just had 60 kids last week attend a tournament, and 2 teams were in the top 3 out of 36 teams, just to brag a little bit. I understand there are students who are not ready for the rigor of earth science or chemistry in 9th grade. I'm really sympathetic to that, since organic chemistry took a piece of my soul that I definitely will never get back. But the electives should be available, however, offered in addition to the options of chemistry and earth science. Choices should also be offered to the students in 8th grade who may not be ready for living environment. The addition of these electives in 9th grade are prohibiting students to take required courses first. This will cause students to double up in science, causing increased stress. After attending the webinar on living environment, moving it to the 8th grade level, my impression was that moving it would alleviate the course load for juniors and seniors, while also allowing for more options. However, I feel the addition of the electives has caused like a clog, and the electives in place of chemistry and earth science isn't the typical progressive nature that our district is really capable of. And I hope you take my comments into consideration. Thanks. Have a great night.
I have a 7th grader and a 10th grader. So for the incoming 8th graders, I'd like the board and administration to reconsider forcing all 8th graders to take 2 Regents classes, science and math. Some students may be ready for that, certainly not all. It's going to damage some kids' confidence, love for learning. So to get back on that, if they're forced to take living environment in 8th grade, then open up chemistry or environmental science to them in 9th grade. I'd give them more choices in 8th grade if possible. Math 8, or algebra or, science 8 or the living environment region. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Barrett Plum and I have a child in the district. I want to encourage all voters to carefully listen and vote no on an overtaxed cap budget that's more focused on appeasing the loudest voices in the community than actual safety or fiscal responsibility. First, going over the tax cap this year means that the base for the tax cap every year going forward will be higher, which means we're exponentially increasing our potential tax burden every single year going forward. This is particularly worrisome when the cost of SROs is not fixed one-time cost. This is an ongoing year-over-year expense that will only go up as the cost of salaries and benefits increase, and is particularly egregious the year after getting a $50 million bond approved. It is not fiscally responsible to incorporate these costs without first considering other measures that are actually proven to increase safety. While I genuinely understand parents' fears and we have to be rational and well-reasoned and thought out in response to emotional concerns, and SROs are not the answer, and the research shows they are certainly not the most important solution, despite what the local SRO Now group continues to push the district. The most important thing we can do to make our schools safer is training in threat assessment and emergency response for our faculty, staff, and local law enforcement. The school shootings in Uvalde, where the first responders did not appropriately coordinate, Parkland, where the SRO didn't respond, and Nashville, where the teachers did the right thing and local law enforcement were immediate, all highlight the importance of ongoing training. If the district has additional funds, they should be allocated to fortifying our physical vulnerabilities. These types of expenses may be more upfront, but are not year-over-year line items on the budget. For example, bullet-resistant film on additional windows is a long-term investment, not an ongoing, ever-increasing cost like SROs, which haven't even been shown to work. Instead of SROs, the district should focus on the belonging survey. Belonging issues are often linked to K through 12 mass shooting incidents, unfortunately. And if we can do something to prevent someone from having the desire to harm our school communities, that is even better than relying on one armed person to have enough ammo and the wherewithal to take down a person with an assault weapon intent on doing harm. Let's take a step back and do everything in our power to ensure that our resources are being used responsibly for mental health support and training in threat assessment to ensure we never need more armed officers. SROs are armed police officers. These armed officers do not decrease our risk for students. And in fact, the studies show increased risk of aggression, the well-documented weapons effect. More people die in school shootings where an armed officer is present. It is the #1 predictor of increase in casualties after the presence of an assault rifle. Let me be very clear. There is a concerted effort by may I have 1 more minute, please?
I'll move to extend the speaker's time by 1 minute. All in favor? 1 more minute.
There's a concerted effort by a very well-organized group in our community that went so far as getting a board member elected, and their purpose is SROs Now. But this is misguided. Even though they have been the squeakiest wheel in getting the grease so far, does not mean that the majority of the people in our community feel this way. Talk to your neighbors, discuss whether voting for an overtax cap budget is reasonable the year after a $50 million bond was approved for something that is not backed by research. Vote no on an overtax cap budget for SROs. Thank you.
Okay. That brings us to the end of the public comment period. Does anybody want to say anything? All right. Well, that brings us to approvals and ratifications. Can I have a motion, please, for item 3.1? Let's take that on its own. It's the minutes, accepting the minutes of the January 10th, 2024 Board of Education meeting. All right, I'll move 3.1. Any questions or comments? All in favor? Okay, so I think we should look at each of these policies separately so that we can have any discussion if warranted. So I'll move 3.2, which is policy 4005, which Dr. Ackerman referenced in the superintendent's report. So I'll move 3.2. Can I have a second? Anybody want to say anything about that?
Email us.
Yeah, I was just going to encourage people, please read it and send your comments.
I guess I'd like to ask a question about it to sort of frame why it is we feel like this policy needs to be developed now, in case that is something that people are wondering.
Right,
about.
so we received a letter on October 30th. It had over 400 people concerned about the curriculum, and because of that process, we realized we didn't really have policy language that would allow people to bring concerns forward if they had a specific concern regarding instructional materials presented to their children. And so part of our work as we moved through the initial focus groups with Greeley and talked about, what our next steps would be to support what our faculty felt like they needed, what our parents felt like they needed, was developing their policy language. So we did some work and looked at some models from other districts, and that's why we have developed something for the board's consideration.
Okay, can I have a motion, please, for 3.3, which is policy 5105?
A second. Okay, so discussion. Okay, so for this, we had, as I had mentioned last meeting, we received a letter with some suggestions and highlighting some concerns around our policy language. So if you take a moment and you review some of the shifts, you'll notice that there's language in there around equal access, the Equal Access Act, and that delineates Horace Greeley student clubs with faculty advisors versus clubs that have supervisors who provide oversight for specific clubs that are outlined under the Equal Access Act. And so a lot of the principles that govern the clubs and their requirements are the same, but it was important that we provided language to distinguish both of them based on the Equal Access Act that we're required to follow. So that's really what the shift is in this particular policy that's up for a fourth reading tonight.
I think there's also a piece in there to try to make it clear that for things that are going to happen off campus, that the field trip policy applies. And so that's also been inserted in there.
Brings us to 3.4, which is policy 4060, which is also a fourth reading tonight. I will move 3.4. Can I have a second?
So our attorney just added some language around defining school days versus just days within the context of the policy, and then added language around having age-appropriate content when children were going to listen to outside speakers sponsored by one of the school-affiliated organizations, and then referencing applicable state and federal law. So nothing that is a shift from what we presented, just some additional language consideration. So
Okay, so again, to the community, we are not voting to adopt anything tonight. So if you have any comments or feedback on any of those policies that had readings tonight, please email the board or the policy committee directly, and that will be taken into consideration.
So I recommend 4.1 instructional as presented.
I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendations under 4.1 as presented. Any questions or concerns or discussion? All in favor?
I recommend 4.2 non-instructional as presented.
I'll move 4.2.
I'll second. Any questions, comments? All in favor? Okay, that brings us to the consent agenda. The use of the consent agenda permits the Board of Education to make more effective use of its time by adopting a single motion to cover relatively routine matters which are included. Any member of the board who wishes to discuss individually a particular piece of business on the consent agenda may so indicate, and that item will be considered and voted on separately, thus preserving the right of all board members to be heard on any issues. So, sorry, as a preliminary matter, does any member want to remove anything from the consent agenda to be voted on separately? Okay. And there's nothing particularly noteworthy. There's some CSE summaries as often as always appear here. Settlements, there is a supplemental MOA with CCT regarding primarily coaching positions. Some appeals to the board. So can I have a motion, please, to move items 5.1 through 5.5?
Second.
Any questions or concerns? All in favor? Item 6.1 is acknowledging a contract approved by Superintendent for Board Policy 6085. I will move 6.1, which is an agreement with the Chappaqua Continuing Education Program. Can I have a second? Any questions or concerns? All in favor? Nothing under facilities this evening, so that brings us to 8, which are the financials. We can take 8.1 through 8.5 together. This is acknowledging receipt of the claims auditor's report for December of 2023, the treasurer's report for December 2023, the appropriation status report for December of 2023, the revenue status report for December of 2023, and the quarterly extra classroom activity report also for December of 2023. So can I have a motion, please, for 8.1 through 8.5? Any questions or concerns? All in favor? Okay, so this brings us to our notice of future meetings. Our next meeting will be Wednesday, February 7th at 7 p.m. here. And that is our Horace Greeley High School presentation, which I believe is the last of our school building presentations for the year. And after that, Wednesday, March 6th, also here at 7 p.m. will be the superintendent budget proposal. Can I have a motion, please, to adjourn at 8:57 p.m.? All in favor? We are adjourned. Have a good night, everybody.